Story 1. This story is told in the perspective of a female. Nesting is real. I know that every pregnancy is different, but I've yet to meet a mother who didn't go a little crazy in those last few weeks, leading up to the birth of their baby. I hope this will explain why I was in Walmart at 11 p.m. with my toddler. I only have a few weeks left until I give birth to baby number 2, and I feel completely unprepared. Anyway, I was spending way too much time looking at pumping supplies, nursing pads, and several other things that my husband had zero interest in. I showed him some mercy and sent him off to the electronics section to look around. That left me pushing my toddler around in the shopping cart while I waddled through the aisles. I noticed a man hanging out nearby. He didn't look particularly creepy or anything, but it registered as strange to me that a man would be spending so much time looking at baby stuff. In my experience, men are much quicker to get what they need and go. They don't browse like a lot of women often do. Then I noticed that the man was following me. When I was looking at shampoos, he was looking at bath toys. When I went to grab a box of wipes, he went to look at packs of diapers. He never picked anything up though. I turned to face the man, looked him directly in the eyes, and said, "Excuse us," as we went past him to another aisle. I just wanted him to know that I had noticed him. My husband met me almost immediately after that. The man saw us together and left that part of the store. I guess he didn't need any baby things after all. I mentioned this man to my husband as we were leaving, but didn't make a big deal about it. I could have misread the situation. The next day is when I realized how creepy my encounter actually was. While watching the local news, I saw a story about a pregnant woman who was walking with her toddler at the park when a man approached her and pressed a knife into her stomach. He instructed her to start walking to an abandoned building nearby. The woman was able to get away, and nothing horrible happened. The story was from a few days before my encounter, and only 20 miles away. The police were still looking for the attacker, and posted a sketch. It was the same man. Story 2. This story is told from the perspective of a female. This happened when I was about 18 years old. I was big into running back then, and lived in a town that was a suburb and had big swaths of farmland, as in smallish tomato and strawberry fields, not huge, never-ending wheat fields. I preferred running on the dirt at the edges of these fields because it was a lot easier on my legs than running long distances on concrete or asphalt, and I was usually training for half marathons, 13.1 miles for those who aren't insane enough to think running is fun. This particular day I was planning to run an easy 6 miles. I told my mom, and she suggested I do a loop and meet them at the dog park around 3 miles from our house, as my halfway point. This is pre-cell phone era, when all the craziest stuff went down, but being careful, I took a walkie-talkie my dad always used, and my mum took the other one. Now the walkie-talkie had a range longer than the ones my brothers and I played around with when we were younger, but it definitely did not work 3 miles away, and I honestly had no idea what its exact range was. So I take off on my run. I'm planning to go on the sidewalk for a little bit until I get to the fields. I think it was a lettuce field or something back then, but whatever it was small plants. I'm running in the dirt, with the road a few yards to my left. I have to run south, and then turn right onto a slightly smaller, less travelled road, to get to the dog park. As I'm running on the first dirt part, my parents drive by, and being dorks, they honk and wave and yell at me. I wave and then soon after make my turn onto the smaller road. This one is road, me on flat dirt, small drainage ditch, forever of lettuce field, then a wall that is a backyard of someone's house. I start noticing how quiet this street is, and how few cars are passing me. Then I randomly start thinking to myself, if someone tried to do something, I could run into those houses. No, they're so far away, I'd never make it. Then I hear a car, but this one doesn't pass me like all the others. I hear it slow down, so that it's behind me, just out of my peripheral vision. My senses go super alert, and I immediately realize what a dumbass I was to pick this route, because I'm stuck out here with no one to help me and nowhere to hide. The car starts speeding up, enough so that it's next to me, and I glance over and see a man, middle-aged, white, dark hair, totally normal looking, but I get a chill down my spine immediately. He sort of leans over into the passenger seat and says in a super sweet voice, "Hi, where are you going? Do you need a ride?" I am scared, and I realize this is not good. Admittedly, nothing has happened, yet, and he could be totally innocently just wanting to chat, but my intuition is in overdrive, telling me I'm not safe. I hop over the ditch, thinking at least that will make it harder for his car to follow me if I need to take off across the field to try and make it to those houses in the distance. This pisses him off. He guns it and gets closer to the ditch and in front of where I am, and then he says in a voice I can only describe as bone-chillingly evil, "You know, you shouldn't be out here all alone. Something horrible could happen to you out here, and no one would ever know where to find you." He has put his car in park and is taking off his seatbelt when I remember the walkie-talkie. The piece of crap is still static because I'm too far away, so I immediately turn down the volume and say loudly, "Hey Dad, yeah, I see your car. I'm over here by this red buick. Do you see me?" I then fake wave to nobody. There was no car coming from the direction my parents were, and when I had started talking, there was no one behind us either. But by the grace of the universe, at that exact moment, a car turned onto the road. The guy saw it, looked at me, and sped off so fast, he left skid marks. I have never run faster in my life, and I was looking behind me every few seconds, and thought he'd be waiting for me at every intersection I had to cross. I was shaking, and I was so scared and relieved when I got to that goddamn dog park. I told my parents everything, and my mum called the cops. They took a statement, but said it would just help if something actually happened to someone else. The weird part was, I was having trouble getting my story out, and was so upset, and before I gave a description of the car, the cop asked, was it a red buick? He wouldn't tell us why, but that just added to my feeling that I had narrowly escaped something awful. Story 3. This happened when I was about 14 or 15. I'm a female, by the way. My dad is very handy and had converted our garage into a bedroom. At the time, my bedroom was in the garage. There are 2 windows in the room. One faces my front yard and front door. The other faces our side fence and a bunch of overgrown bushes. We rarely would go out the side fence. The space between our house and the fence created a small pathway from the driveway to the backyard. The path was maybe 4 feet wide and maybe 12 feet long. I'm not 100% sure, but the point is, it isn't a wide space. Like I said, the pathway is covered with overgrown bushes, and on each end of the pathway is a bolted gate. The actual fence is pretty high, 5 to 6 feet tall, so we can't see into the neighbor's yard. As a side note, my mum always liked to leave the windows and blinds open. She's not paranoid at all, and I think I learned this habit from her. One morning before school, I was getting dressed. Both my window blinds were open. I remember I had my shirt on, and was in the process of pulling on my leggings when my dog came into my room and began barking. This was weird because this dog never barked, unless there was actually something to bark at. Like she didn't even bark if someone knocked on the door. It had to be actually something out of the ordinary for her to bark. I noticed she was barking, and looking at the side fence window, I had a hard time seeing through the window, as it was still kind of dark outside, and there was a bad reflection on the window. I got my face really close to the window to see outside, when I saw a camera pointed right at me. I scrambled to pull the blinds down and yelled, "What the F are you doing?" I saw the camera and hand holding the camera move away. I ran to my parents and told them what happened. I still wasn't dressed. My dad, also not dressed, hurried to put shoes on and ran outside. When he came back, he said he hadn't found anyone, but the bolt on the gate near the driveway was unbolted. Both my parents were a little, skeptical isn't the right word, maybe confused is a better word, because the side fence area was so hard to get to, and that window could not be seen from the street or sidewalk. Whoever it was must have really been watching our house to know that window was there. There was never any doubt in my mind about what I had seen, even though I never saw the person's face due to the reflection. Years later I brought it up to my parents again, and my dad said he'd told our next door neighbor about it. She told him she thought she knew who it was, her next door neighbor. Our neighbor believed it was him because she had seen him looking in her windows too. This guy, who my family refers to as Jerk, is, well, a jerk. He is very nosy. Once my boyfriend was sitting outside in his truck, parked outside my house, waiting for me to come outside, when Jerk literally looked inside my boyfriend's car for a long time. My boyfriend finally said, "Can I help you?" and Jerk walked away. But the really jerky thing Jerk did was report some work my dad had done to our house to the county. Like I said, my dad was very handy and put a few small additions into our house, without the use of permits. One of these additions was turning the garage into a bedroom. The city made us either tear the additions down, the ones they caught anyways, they never noticed the garage, or have a contractor fix them up to code. My parents didn't have the money to fix them, so they tore them down. I think in hindsight it was Jerk. I think he was trying to photograph the garage as a bedroom, and not necessarily me. I think had I not been nearly naked, he would have used the pictures as evidence that the garage was not a garage. But because he caught me on camera, he never did anything with the pictures, and I think he just gave up. Think of how much trouble he would have gotten into, trespassing on our property and photographing a minor nude. Even though it was pretty traumatic for me, I never leave my blinds open now. I think Jerk kind of got what was coming to. Yes, my dad did work without permits, but none of that work ever hurt or burdened Jerk in any way. He is just a nosy, miserable human being, and wants everyone else to be miserable too. So I think it's karma that Jerk was trying to get us in trouble, but got himself in trouble instead. So moral of the story is, 1. Don't be an unnecessarily nosy neighbour, because you never know what you'll see, and 2. Don't leave your blinds open.